The hearth fire hissed, the only sound in a cabin suffocated by silence. Three brothers occupied three separate corners, refusing to meet each other's eyes. The eldest stood abruptly, pointing a finger across the room. "This failure is entirely your fault," he shouted, his voice cracking against the low ceiling. The youngest surged to his feet, palms pressed flat against the logs. "You are always trying to act superior to us," he spat back, his face reddened, hands trembling with suppressed energy. The second brother paced the narrow floor, kicking a loose board, his jaw set in a hard line. They ignored the man sitting by the fire. The father watched them, his hands resting on his bow, his fingers tracing the wood. He did not intervene. He did not raise his voice. He simply watched as his sons circled each other like trapped animals, their words cutting deeper than any blade. He let out a long, heavy sigh that seemed to drain the remaining warmth from the room. The brothers did not stop. They continued their accusations, the air thick with resentment. The father leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes, listening to the unraveling of his family, waiting for the shouting to fade into the inevitable hollow quiet. The sun had barely cleared the tree line when the heavy door groaned open. The father stepped into the yard, the cold morning air biting at his skin. He did not look back. He walked to the center of the clearing and stood in the frost, waiting. One by one, the three brothers emerged from the cabin. They kept their distance, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the ground. The bitterness of the previous night still clung to them like damp wool. The father held a bundle of arrows in his left hand, the shafts bound tightly with a thick, rough-spun rope. He laid the bundle on a flat stump and pressed his palm against it. He signaled for them to approach. They gathered in a semicircle, their movements hesitant and stiff. The eldest brother crossed his arms, his mouth a thin line of skepticism. The second brother shifted his weight, glancing at his feet. The youngest watched the father's hands, his brow furrowed in confusion. The father did not speak. He tapped the center of the bundle. The wood was stiff, unyielding, and bound into a single, immovable mass. He gestured toward the arrows, then looked at each of his sons in turn, his gaze demanding their full attention. The challenge was set. The verbal war was finished. Now, only the test remained. The eldest brother stepped forward first. He gripped the bundle with both hands, his fingers white-knuckled against the rope. He planted his boots into the frozen earth and pulled. His muscles bunched. His face surged with blood until the skin turned a deep, throbbing red. The bundle did not shift. He grunted, a guttural sound of frustration, and pushed with every ounce of strength he possessed. The wood remained perfectly straight. He stepped back, chest heaving, his hands trembling from the strain. The second brother shoved him aside, eager to prove his superior power. He locked his grip, leaned his entire body weight into the center of the bundle, and gave a sharp, violent jerk. Nothing. He tried again, growling. His jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. The bundle stayed solid. Finally, the youngest stepped into the circle. He was smaller, but he attacked the wood with desperate intensity. He wrapped his arms around the arrows, braced his feet, and threw his weight backward. His boots slid in the mud. He gasped for air, his face wet with sweat, pushing until his vision blurred. He released his hold, stumbling backward as the bundle sat on the stump. Untouched and unbowed, they stood in a ragged line, panting, eyes fixed on the arrows that defied their combined fury. The father reached down and pulled the knot. The rope fell away, landing in the dirt with a soft thud. He held out one arrow to each son. The eldest took his, the wood cool and smooth against his palm. The second and youngest followed. Their movements were cautious now, stripped of the earlier bravado. "Now, try again," the father said. The eldest brother applied pressure with his thumbs. A sharp, dry crack echoed through the yard as the wood snapped in two. The second brother did the same, his arrow splintering instantly. The youngest stared at the jagged pieces in his hand, his mouth slightly open, eyes wide. He had expected resistance, but there was none. The wood was brittle, weak, and utterly defenseless. The brothers looked at one another, the silence heavy and absolute. The father stepped forward and held up the broken remnants, his voice steady and low. "When you stay united like the tied bundle, no force can harm you. But if you live like these separate arrows, you will be easily broken by anyone. The youngest brother dropped his splintered wood into the mud. It lay there, a clear, sharp truth on the ground. The brothers stood motionless, the weight of the lesson sinking in, the reality of their isolation finally visible in the broken shafts at their feet. The eldest brother looked at the splintered wood, then raised his gaze to his brothers. He reached out, his palm open. The others hesitated for only a heartbeat before closing their hands over his. They stood in a circle, their grips firm and steady, acknowledging the choice before them. From that day, the dynamic within the cabin transformed. When they tracked through the deep forest, they moved as a single, coordinated unit, anticipating each other's needs before a word was spoken. When the autumn storms battered the cabin, they worked in tandem to reinforce the roof, holding ladders and passing heavy beams with seamless rhythm. The shouting matches vanished, replaced by the quiet efficiency of shared labor. Inside, the hearth remained the heart of the home, but the focus had shifted. The father placed the newly tied bundle of arrows back upon the mantle, right where the light caught it every morning. It sat there, thick and unbreakable, a constant, silent reminder. They no longer moved as three separate lives, but as one force. The forest winds howled against the walls, but the brothers worked on, unmoved, their strength anchored in the bond that held them together against the hardening world outside.